want to welcome you. I want to welcome you all to what is a relatively new and exciting webinar called The Other 50%. The Other 50% of Directing. Directing, as we all know, is a huge, huge job. A lot of you are directors, and you know what a challenging job it is. One half of that job is everything that has to do with making a film. It has to do with the scripts and working with the actors and working on the set and finding locations and working with cameras and all of those skills that you need to acquire to be able to make a film. The other 50%, which we are talking about today, the other 50% is just as important. The other 50% of directing is how you, as a director, deal with other people, how you deal with the actors, how you deal with the crew, how you deal with the cinematographer, how you deal with the editor, how you deal with the producers, how you deal with everybody else. Because how you handle everybody else, how you communicate with everybody else, and especially, which we'll be talking about today, how you work with them in terms of what they are bringing to this project is crucial. So this other 50% is really about the psychology of human behavior, how you interact, how you influence, how you raise them up, how you deal with what we're going to talk about today, problems. When you're making a film, directing a film, what you can count on is problems. They're going to be there every day in one form or another. It could be people, it could be things, it could be rain. There's always going to be problems. How you deal with other people who give you problems or bring problems is crucial. That's what we're talking about today. Now, one part of storytelling that I find really kind of intriguing, a lot of us call black holes. When you have a story that you're telling, you can see it in the script. You can see it in a performance. You can see it in the edit. You can see there's something wrong. Now, a black hole is a moment in your story that doesn't seem to make sense. It confuses the audience, or the audience stops, or the viewer stops and goes, that doesn't make sense. Why would she do that? That doesn't make sense. Why is this happening? That doesn't make sense. That's outside the world that the director has created. That's outside of the genre. Something is wrong. And what will happen when you hit a black hole? I get kicked out of the story. I get kicked out of my involvement in the story. And now my mind is working the way I do as a professional storyteller, trying to fix the problem, trying to figure it out, which means I'm stuck in that problem. I'm stuck in that black hole. There are three ways that I know of, and maybe there are some others, of dealing with a black hole in a film, dealing with that problem. One way is ignore it and just keep right on going and hope nobody notices. There's a great interview with Jack Nicholson on the DVD of As Good as It Gets, and he talks about a certain moment in the film, which actually doesn't make any sense at all. And he talks about that. He says, almost every film I do, there's a moment that just doesn't make any sense. It's just illogical. And I know there's only one thing I need to do. Just keep going, sort of charge forward and hope nobody notices. It's a common thing. So that's one way. Hope nobody notices. Another way of dealing with a black hole, which a lot of editors will get into or directors will get into, is create a lot of eye candy events on the screen that are so dazzling that you've forgotten that there was a black hole. That issue you had with it is gone. And now you're swept into the energy of something else, a big dance number or something like that. That's another way. The third way, which is really the most interesting way of dealing with a black hole, is to point right at it, recognize it, and actually give it a moment. And the best way to do that is to have somebody on the screen, a character in your movie, go to another character, say, Why did she do that? That doesn't make any sense. What'll happen to you in the audience when you're going, that doesn't make sense, and a character in the film says, that doesn't make sense. You go, yay, thank you. Okay, I'm okay now. You recognize that it's there too, and now I'm fine. Now, that way of doing it, that way of handling the problem through the script, through the performance, through the characters, is what I call sleight of hand. It's very clever. It's a trick. But that's a trick. That's a trick you can use to help get past a problem. Now, here's another problem, a bigger problem than just black holes in terms of storytelling, directing, filmmaking, or even directing in theater, is when you have a scene that for some reason just doesn't seem to work. It seemed okay when you read it. It seemed okay when the actors read it. It even seemed pretty good when you were rehearsing it, but now you have it up. And if you're in theater, you're running the scene and you're looking at it, and it's just not working. It's not working the way the scene before or after, or the rest of the whole project is working. It's just, it is in itself, that scene in itself becomes a black hole because the audience can feel it. The audience can feel it. Something's off. Something's not working. What's the solution? Now, getting back to theater for a second, this is where I first discovered how to deal with a scene that just doesn't seem to be working, that I had really three choices. Now, one choice, because I have a tendency to direct a lot of plays that are original plays, so I'm working with a writer, which is exciting. One way to deal with a scene that's not working is to rewrite the scene. Yeah, let's rewrite the scene. Maybe that'll fix it. Even though you may be looking at the scene saying, this is really a well-written scene, there's no problem with the scene. I don't know if rewriting is really going to solve the problem. Second way of dealing with it is to go back into rehearsal for the scene. Go back with the actors, discuss the scene, discuss the characters, discuss their intentions, their objectives, their obstacles, all the dynamics of the scene, and see if you can make adjustments from within the characters to make the scene work. That's possible. That's possible. But if you're making a film, you got to stop production and all of a sudden go back into rehearsal and re-examination. If you're in a play and it's about to open, you'll only have so much time. The third way that I discovered, this was many years ago when I was at Yale School of Drama studying directing. The third way to fix a scene that is not working, and this is magic, this way of doing it, it's magical in its own way, is through the staging. Restage the scene. Now, this comes down to your skills and your knowledge and your belief and understanding of how staging works. Staging actually generates emotions and energy within the characters. Staging actually generates emotion and energy within the audience, depending on how it's staged. So I can quickly restage a scene and change the focus. I can even change the subtext of the scene just through the staging. Now, that staging by itself, because it's all these new ideas and all these new things, in a way, it's magical. In a way, it's sleight of hand, and it can solve the problem. Now, another problem that we run into as directors, bigger than the black holes and bigger than just a scene not working, is working with other people. Now we're back to the other 50%. You're working with 10, 20, 30, 40, hundreds, 200. The number of people you're working with is enormous. The number of personalities you have to work with, the number of people you at the center of this production are trying to guide towards some kind of unified vision of your film is enormous. And it's all in your hands. How you deal with those people, either directly or indirectly, is crucial. Now, this, quote, problem, let's call it a challenge. This challenge is huge. One reason, it's there all the time. From the moment you walk on the set, you see the first person, crew member, actor, whatever, it's operative. You're dealing with other people. You're dealing with their needs, their fears, their desires, their aspirations, their agendas. You're even dealing with, I know all of you run through this, whatever is going on in their personal life that day. They arrive that day and you can sense something's different. Something is off. Something you may or may not have to deal with. Something you may or may not even find out what it is. But it's your job, not so much to corral them into doing what you want them to do. It's your job to help them somehow get past whatever it is they're dealing with, even if you don't know what it is. But if you can sense what it is, your job is to help them get past that so that they can do the work you want them to do. They can do the work they want to do, and they can do it at the highest level possible. Now, there are a lot of ways of dealing with, I'm going to go to that phrase, which I really don't like, problem actor. Now, the problem actor is, no, it's an actor with a problem. They're not problematic. They just have a problem, an issue. And the actor is being resistant, or their actor is defying something. The actor is always late, whatever it is. How do you deal with that? No, there are several ways you can do it. Just like with the black holes and the problematic scene. One is you could just press forward and go ahead and just hope all works out for the best. I'm going to give you a little bit of example. The actor you're working with has a different idea of how the scene should go than what you want, and it's radically different, and you don't really want to go there. You don't want to go there because you don't have time, or you don't want to go there because you know it's not what you want, and you have to get this actor shifted onto your way of thinking. How do you do that? Now, you can just press forward and hope everything's going to be okay. You can sort of capitulate and just let the actor do it the way he wants to do it. But now you have something in your film that's not really what you were going for. That could be problematic. You could press against, you could push back against that actor. You could push back and say, no, it's not demand. No, this is not what we're going to do. We're going to do it this way. That might work, but when you have that kind of conflict going on, even just an artistic argument, basically somebody has to win and somebody has to lose. And it's not a good place to go. The third way is you negotiate. You deal with it in a different way. And ideally, this is getting back to the bag of tricks. It's getting back to this whole other 50% in a way that the actor is not sure what you did, but suddenly a shift has happened. Can you shift that person away from whatever their issue is or whatever it is that they're holding on to you? Can you shift them to see this moment, this scene, the way you see it, without pushing against them? Can you get them to shift by actually showing empathy to them, actually including them in your process, not making it confrontational? This is the other 50%. Now, people, actors, writers, directors, artists, people who are working on a film, if they are having a problem, if there's resistance, especially creative and artistic resistance, keep in mind one thing. That resistance is very likely being triggered by something other than the project. Now, your first job is to see or sense a red flag. There's a problem. Sometimes you can see it the moment they walk on the set. Sometimes you can see it from their behavior, their attitude, the way they're dressed, the way they're talking. Something's going on. Something's going on that's going to be problematic if I don't divert the energy away from that somehow. Back in 1981, I was directing a film for KCET in Los Angeles. That's the PBS station. And this was a dramatic feature. There was a great story. It's called Blind Tom. Some of you may know about Blind Tom. Blind Tom was a young African-American boy during the Civil War. This is a Civil War drama. And he was a slave. His mother was a slave. His whole family was a slave. And he was owned by this landowner, this plantation owner, Mr. Bethune. So he was known as Thomas Bethune, or Blind Tom. Now, Blind Tom, because he was blind, the owner didn't have him doing anything as a slave. There was no jobs. And the little Tom, 9 years old, this is the time we're telling the story, was allowed to run around the house and actually became a playmate of Mr. Bethune's daughter. They became best friends. But Tom discovered the piano. Now, this whole story is about a young boy, African-American boy, who is a musical genius. He got to the point he could hear a piece of music once and he could play it back perfectly. He's one of those geniuses. This was Blind Tom. Now, we're doing a movie about Blind Tom at KCET, and it's got a huge cast, and I've been hired. I'm excited because suddenly I'm doing something that feels more like a feature film and a little less like television or a sitcom. Without getting into the details of this, by the time I was hired to direct this project, the whole thing was cast. The producers and everybody had cast it. So it came already cast. Not the best situation, but hey, I got the job. I'm happy. And I'm looking at the cast list and I notice a lot of names that I know very well. There's people like Bonnie Bartlett and Ben Piazza. These are well-known television stars. I go, wow, Fran Bennett, another one. I go, I know about these people. I've never met them. So I'm thrilled with the people we got. On the first day, the very first day of going into quote production, which is actually the day of the table read. We're going to get together. Everybody's going to meet everybody. We're going to read the table. The producers and the designers and everybody's going to be there. The whole crew will be there just to hear it read. And then in the afternoon, I'll start rehearsing. And I had a certain number of days of rehearsal because we're going to rehearse a lot. And then we're going to shoot it. And we're not broadcasting live, but we're shooting it multiple cameras later, sort of like a sitcom. On that first day, I walk on the soundstage. Now you got to remember, none of these people who have been cast know who I am. I have no idea. There's this guy, Mark Travis, he's the director. Okay, fine. So when I walk on the set, nobody knows who I am. I really only know a lot of them from their reputation. The soundstage is set up exactly the way I want it. Half of the soundstage is totally empty. On the other half of the soundstage, I have a series of tables set up with chairs around them. This is where we're going to meet. This is where we're going to talk. And this is where we're going to do the reading. And they're all the chairs, all set up. And obviously, people who come in, they gravitate towards that, towards the table and the chairs. And the actors go there and find a place to sit. Fine, everything's great. And I'm there and I'm finding my place. And because that's a big square, I find a place that seems like the head of this configuration of tables so they can feel like I'm in the power position. And I see Bonnie Bartlett, who's playing the wife of Mr. Bethune. So she's the wife they own Blind Tom. I see her come in. Now you have to remember something. This is a Civil War drama. It's really gritty. We're dealing with slavery. We're dealing with horrible situations. We're dealing with, obviously, with a lot of racism, and we're dealing with music. There's a lot of elements in here, but it's Civil War. That time, Bonnie Bartlett comes in. I've never met her before, never seen her before, except on television. And she comes in dressed in a three-piece suit, three-piece tight skirt, vest, jacket, hair coiffed perfectly, high heels. Now I look at that and I go, wow, really different than everybody else. Everybody else is much more casually dressed. It looks like she's going to a board meeting. Red flag number one. Now, when I say red flag, all I'm saying is, okay, I'm not saying there's a problem. What I'm saying to myself is, what is going on? What can I read from this? What can I assume from this? Don't know. I get settled into my place on the square. She settles in all the way across on the other, in the power position on the other side. So I'm facing straight across all these tables to her, and she's in a power position in her suit and high heels. I go, Now these red flags are just things that you want to be aware of with everybody. One thing about the other 50% is you have to develop wonderful peripheral vision. Be aware of it. Anything that someone comes in and suddenly they're arguing with somebody else, be aware of that. Be aware of what, as much as you can, of what's going on with other people and how it might impact your work and what you're doing. Some of it won't. Some of it you can just let go. Some of it you may have to deal with. With actors, obviously, whatever they come in with, whatever attitude they enter with, that's what you're going to have to deal with. So I'm watching Bonnie Bartlett, and I said, okay, suit, coiffed hair, high heels. Interesting. Problem? I have no idea, but it's just interesting. Everybody's gathered around. I introduce myself to them. I say, I'm the director. So now they know who I am. Now they know I'm the director and all that. And I say, okay, here's what we're going to do first. I said, I want you to put everything down. We don't need the scripts from this. You don't need anything. Don't take anything with you. And we're going to go over to the empties, over there to the empty side of the stage. We're just all going to meet over there, but don't bring anything. So they get up and they're starting to move. And I even noticed, sort of in my peripheral vision, Bonnie Bartlett's probably the last one to get up. Everybody's moving and she's a little bit waiting or holding back something. I'm just telling you all these little details to say these are the little things I'm picking up on. Don't know if I have a problem. We get over to that empty area and I say, okay, let's everybody form a circle. One big circle. Nobody in front or behind anybody, just big circle. And we have about 20 people there or something like that. And they form a circle, and Bonnie Bartlett's in the circle, Ben Piazza's in the circle, all the actors are in the circle. I am in the middle of the circle, the power position, intentionally. I'm in the middle and they're forming the circle. So I've separated myself from them. And this is part of how self-staging, which we can talk about later, can help you a lot, because there's a message I'm giving to them by being in the center of the circle. In the center of the circle, I look around, everybody's relaxed. I say, okay, here's what's going to happen. And I just hold up in my hand a small ball. It's a ball that's about that big. It's a playground ball. It's not a soccer ball. It's not a hard ball like that. It's a relatively soft ball that you could toss back and forth, and if it hits the ground, doesn't matter. It's a ball. I bring out the ball. All I've said is, here's what's going to happen. And I bring out the ball. And in that moment, Bonnie Bartlett suddenly yells out loudly, "Theater games!" with great delight. Now, theater games, for those of you who don't know, these are games we play in theater to stimulate characters, situations, or experiences, all that. Theater games with such delight. And she rips off her jacket. She rips off her vest. She kicks off her shoes. Now she's barefoot there, and she is obviously ready to play. Now, something happened. Something delightful happened in that moment. And from that moment on, first of all, one thing, we never saw the three-piece suit again. Ever. From that moment on, Bonnie Bartlett was very accommodating, playful, very supportive. Now, what I saw come in and sit at the table, and then what I saw after she said theater games, two different people. What happened? I don't know, but I can guess. Bonnie Bartlett was a big star at that time. This production is a very low-level PBS movie that'll be seen by all of 12 people or so. It's not maybe at her level. It's not the way she wants to be seen. She may be feeling insecure. Why am I doing this? Or she may want everybody to know that she's important. I don't know. And tell you the truth, right at the moment, I don't care. But who knows what's going on? But if you sense that there's some kind of friction potential, deal with it somehow. First of all, don't give up on what you're going to do. Go ahead and do what you're doing, and then keep your eye on that. Later in the afternoon, everything's going great. We've had the reading. The reading's gone great. Had lunch, and now it's in the afternoon, and we're rehearsing. And as a lot of you know, the way I like to rehearse, because of my background in theater and all that, I don't want to just rehearse scenes. I want to create characters. I want to create relationships and the dynamics of this interesting family structure that's here, which is actually two families. It's the white family and the black family. The black family are the slaves. The white family are the slave owners. The white family is a mother, father, and a daughter, 11-year-old daughter, played by Missy Gold. And the black family is Fran Bennett as the mother, and Tom, blind Tom, as the son. In a way, all of those together make a family, an interesting family dynamic, and we have to explore that. So I have those actors in a circle. We're sitting in chairs in a circle, and we're talking a little bit about the characters and all that. And then suddenly I start to shift to talking to the characters. Now, for those of you who know a lot about the interrogation process, this is way before the interrogation process had been totally formed. It's at the beginning of it. It's a little bit, a taste of it. And I'm talking to the characters. So I'm talking to the mother of the blind Tom. I'm actually talking to blind Tom, and I'm getting them to talk to each other. And then suddenly Ben Piazza, who's sitting next to me, says, excuse me. He stops everything. I go, okay, what's the problem? I can't do this. Now there's the problem. Susan actor says, I can't do this. We're not even sure what the this is yet, but we have a situation that we need to deal with. I can't do this. I say, okay, what's the problem? I don't improvise. I said, oh, no, you just give me the script. I've got the script. I've got my lines. I know what I'm doing. I don't improvise. Now, it wasn't even, I'm not good at improvisation, or I don't like improvisation. It's, I don't improvise. Now you as the director, you're at a critical moment here. You're putting this whole project together, and he is a key figure in this whole family dynamic that you're trying to create. He's a key figure because later in the drama, he uses blind Tom to actually make a lot of money. I mean, the way he uses his slave is kind of frightening. Anyway, now again, I have a lot of choices at that moment. I could give pushback. I could try to force him to do it. Not a good idea. I could get into a debate about improvisation and how valuable it is. Not a good idea. I can acquiesce with a condition. Now, acquiescing with a condition is a form of negotiation. You give in to something, but you make a demand for something else. That's it. And the something else seems minuscule, not important. So when he says, no, I can't do this, I don't improvise, I said, no, that's fine, Ben. No, you don't need to. You don't need to. I mean, but just stay here. Stay here means stay in the circle. Don't go someplace. Just stay with us. Just stay here. That's all I ask. And don't worry, Ben, I won't call on you. Well, okay, now he's fine. I can see he's relaxed because he doesn't really want to improvise. And I keep working with the rest of them. But my questions to the rest of them now shift. I'm talking to Bonnie Bartlett about her relationship with her husband, Ben Piazza, and what she thinks of him, Ben Piazza, the famous lawyer, very wealthy lawyer and landowner, plantation owner, Ben Piazza, what she thinks of him, how they met, what she thinks of her daughter. But what I'm doing is I'm asking everybody, Fran Bennett, the mother of blind Tom, even blind Tom himself, and even Missy Gold, the daughter of Ben Piazza, asking about him. And it's really interesting the things that come out. That's all fine for a moment, but then you hear Bonnie Bartlett saying, yeah, but he's not the man he used to be. He's not the man. He's changed. I don't know if I like the way she's saying things like that. And I'm just listening. I'm going, okay. I'm just sort of taking it all in. And then they start talking to each other about it. And Bonnie Bartlett and Fran Bennett, the two mothers, are discussing the slave owner and debating about him because they have such different opinions of him. Suddenly, Ben Piazza goes, okay, fine. He snaps out and he starts as the lawyer, as Mr. Bethune, defending himself. All right, fine. So I'm not what I used to be. Look, you don't understand what it's like running this plantation. You don't understand. And he just launches almost into a monologue. We're all shocked. We didn't expect that. We thought he was going to be silent. And he goes on for quite a while. And it was brilliant. It was raw. And we all just sat there and listened. And then after that was over, I said to everybody, said to Ben, I thanked Ben. I said, okay, let's take a break. And we took a break. And within moments, I saw Bonnie Bartlett go over to Ben, and they've known each other for years. And she goes over and she gives him a big hug. That was a shift. A shift. We got around a problem. Again, I don't know what the problem was. I can guess. A lot of actors don't like to improvise because they are afraid they can't do it well. A lot of actors don't want to improvise because they don't think they'll be seen as the way they want to be seen as a skilled actor. Who knows what's going on? I really don't care. If I get into that, I'm in trouble. What I want to do is get around that and let it go. This did it. I gave him an opportunity. He said, I don't want to do it. I said, okay, but stay. I actually give him a second opportunity by staying. And quite honestly, if he had never said anything, if he had never responded, I would have been fine. Because think about it. If he had sat there for 20 minutes, 10, 15, 20 minutes, listening to the other characters in his world, talking about him, if he just listened, that would have been enough. Because I know by him just listening, he's getting their point of view, their attitude, and whatever he's feeling about that is stirring up inside him. It is working. The process is working. So when I say don't leave the circle, I'm saying don't leave the process. You can enter into the process in another way, but don't leave. And I'm counting on the process to do its work. Now that's the other 50%. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, you have to realize that anybody who's showing resistance, especially in the creative zone, so it's writers, especially writers and actors, resistance, I don't want to do that. There's probably something else going on. And it may be related to some fear. And this is what the other 50% is about. In fact, I highly recommend, if you read my book, you're going to pick up a lot of tools, techniques that you can use in this negotiation, this collaboration with other people to help them get past whatever resistance they have, which is probably getting in their way as well as your way. How you can do that empathetically and how you can do that and actually raise them up, not put them down. You want to be very careful. With Ben Piazza, it would have been very easy for me to criticize him. What do you mean you can't improvise? You're an actor, aren't you? I could have said that in front of the other actors. Well, that's just making things worse. Whatever was bad, now it's worse. Can't do that. Can't do that. You have to come from the idea, I'm going to raise you up, I'm going to commend you, I'm going to you, and we're going to find a third path. Maybe not my path, maybe not your path, a third path to get to where we want to get to. That's the other 50%. The other 50% that we're talking about today is going on all the time. It's not something that just comes up every now and then. Problems will come up every now and then, but it's something you're dealing with every moment. Now, one thing that I noticed when I started teaching all over the world, one thing was very startling, is there are no classes in a lot of these schools on how to work with actors, how to work with. Now, I use the word work with rather than direct. The term direct means I'm going to direct you, I'm going to tell you what to do, and I'm going to hope that you do it. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just working with. How do you work with these people? How do you work with these men and women, these actors and children who are going to bring the characters in your film alive? How do you work with them? How do you keep them working? How do you keep them motivated? How do you keep them excited? Now we're into the other 50%. No class like that at all. Nowhere. So what we're talking about today, there are no classes you can take, except this one. Well, this is a webinar, but the one I'm doing in April, which we'll talk about April and May, there's a class coming up, which is all about this, where we take a deep dive into all of this, all these techniques. That's a class, but there's nobody else is teaching it, which is really unfortunate because it's such a huge part of our job. How we connect with other people, how we communicate with other people, how we can negotiate with other people, how we can inspire other people, how we can open other people's creativity, how we as directors are doing that. It's a big part of our job, huge. In terms of working with writers, a long time ago, I was hired. First, I had an interview to direct this film. It's an interesting film, an interesting project. It was all about, interestingly enough, because of all the political stuff that's happening now, it was all about Tesla. Nikola Tesla, a genius, a genius who was abused by a lot of other people. We won't get into all of that, but he was the genius. He was the genius who actually predicted he could bring electricity to the whole world for nothing, for no cost. And that's when people like Westinghouse and other people and Edison said, if we can't put a meter on it, we won't do it. In other words, we're going to charge money. But he actually proved how to do that. But this was a film about Tesla, about Tesla's life. It was a fascinating story. And I read the script, but the script didn't work. Now, as a lot of you know, especially those of you who are writers and directors, that 90% of the scripts we read don't work. There's problems, huge problems. Now the question is how to work with those writers, how to work with that writer to bring out the best in the writer. Now this writer has spent, a year or maybe even longer writing this script. And to come in and say, well, this doesn't work, you got to change this. This doesn't work, got to change that. And I get a lot of criticism, which maybe he's received already from a lot of people. It's probably not going to be terribly productive. And this project, which I'm being hired to work on as a director, has financing. It's getting ready. It's a low budget project, but it has getting ready to go into, it wants to go into production. So is this a good time for rewrites? Well, if the script isn't working, it's always a good time for rewrites. So I'm in a meeting with the writer, his wife, who is one of the producers, another producer who's a good friend of mine, who is the one responsible for bringing me into this project. But this is the first time I'm meeting with the writer to talk about, and the producers, to talk about the script. Now the question is, what do I do? How do I handle this? Now, to be really honest, I want to step back a little bit. And this is something I've learned over the years. When you look at a script, think about two things. Is it an interesting story? Forget the script. Is it an interesting story that is trying to be told here? Is it? In this case, it was. It was a fascinating story. And I read other stuff about Tesla too, which I said, oh, this guy's amazing. This is going to be a really good, potentially, script. Now, second question, is it a good script? Well, I could say very honestly, no. No, it's not told well. There was a lot of science in it. There was a lot of mechanics in it. There was a lot of, events in it, and other famous characters like Westinghouse and Edison and people like that. And then when Edison burned down Tesla's lab, I mean, there were big events like that. Beyond that, historically, the script wasn't that intriguing. So there's a problem. Great story, not a great script. Third question. To me, what attracts me to the script? Is there anything in that script? And there was one scene in that script which was amazing, and actually had nothing to do with Tesla's brilliance in the lab, with electricity, the Tesla tower, Tesla coil, all of those things had nothing to do with that. It had to do with his relationship with his wife and the amazing, wonderful, erotic, sexual relationship that they had. It was a different kind of electricity. And the way it was written was stunning, because it was almost like magical realism, because it described them as they were making love, floating in the air and moving, and the sounds. I went, wow, this is great. Why can't the entire script be at that level? So I'm sitting there talking to the writer and the producer and the other producers and a couple of other people, and we're talking about the script. And I say to Walter, the writer, exactly what I've just told you. I said, this is a great story. This is really a great story, and I really thrilled to be here, thrilled to be part of this, and really looking forward to that. And I could see the writer going, yeah. Okay, good. He likes the script. I didn't say I like the script. I didn't tell him I didn't say I like the script. I just said it's a great story. And I talked about Tesla and all of that and the dynamics of it and the politics of it and all of that. And I said, there's one scene in this, though, Walter, that is truly amazing. And I think is the key to the entire story that you're writing. And I mentioned the love scene. I said, that is an extraordinary scene. And I could say that scene is telling me everything about what this film is about. It's not just about Tesla, and it's not just about electricity. It's about the electrical energy between people. It's about the electrical power. Some of that energy is negative, some of it's positive. And I used a lot of electrical terms. I said, that's what this scene is saying. And suddenly Walter started smiling, and he looked at his wife and he said, finally, somebody gets my script. Finally. Does it need a lot of rewrites? Yes. But all I'm saying is that if the other scenes can rise to that level, if the other scenes can support that idea, we'll have a great script. That's all I'm saying, very subtly. Sadly, the end of this story is not that sad. It wasn't that much later that the financier, the one person who was financing the entire project, pulled the money out for one reason. His wife read the script and hated it. So working with a writer is very similar to working with an actor, but sometimes, and I've done this many, many times, as a lot of you know, you're working with both the writer and the actor at the same time. Now, this has to do with a lot of the one-person shows that I've done, including A Bronx Tale, which a lot of you know about, where the person you're working with now, I'm working with one person. It's not a group of people for a long time. It's just one person. That one person has a unique position in this whole project. That person, let's take it like Bronx Tale, that person is, number one, telling a story from his life. So he's the resource for all the material that's going to go into this story. He's the resource. That's where you do the research, to him. Number two, he's the writer. He wants to write it. Okay, now we have he's the resource and he's the writer. And number three, he's going to be the actor. So he's got these three key roles that are going on. And who am I? I'm the director, developer, director, coach, whatever it is. It's a very unique situation. So, but I have to be aware of if there's problems. Is it an acting problem? Is it a writing problem? Eventually, it became a research problem because of where the material was coming from. But let's just deal with the actor-writer. The actor-writer. I have to be aware. At one point in this drama, this is a story about Chaz as a little boy. His nickname was C, the letter C. It's a 9-year-old boy who was enamored with little Johnny, who's this local neighborhood gangster, a brutal man. And he had witnessed little Johnny kill another man. That little boy was the only one there who witnessed it. So there's an interesting connection, very dynamic and potentially volatile connection between these two. But the little boy is fascinated with little Johnny. C is fascinated because he's dynamic and he's got a lot of women around him and other people worship him and all of that. And at one point in the story, little Johnny says to C, the little boy, "You are talented. You are amazing. You really are talented." Now, this had to do with the little boy's imagination and creative imagination. And little Johnny recognized it and said, "You're talented." Now, I'm working with Chaz. I go, "It's a great scene. It's a great scene." And a little later, I said to Chaz, "Okay, we need a scene where that information about how little Johnny sees the little boy, how Johnny sees you, the father needs to hear that, because basically what we have is a triangle here: little boy, father, and little Johnny, and gangster. That's the triangle. That's the triangle that's at the center of the whole story. And anything that happens has to resonate between all 3 points of that triangle. You can't keep one out because then it's not going to work. So I said, the father has to know. So I said, we need a scene where the little boy tells the father, little Johnny thinks I'm talented. And even tells him how much he loves that, how that makes him feel. Chaz's reaction. This is sort of similar to Ben Piazza. Chaz's reaction immediately, won't ever forget this, was no way. No way am I doing that. Now just ask yourself, I don't have an answer for you, but ask you, no way am I doing that. I, the writer, I, the actor, who, where, this is my life. You realize how complicated it gets. What is he really referring to? I won't do that. And I go, well, why not? No, Mark. Now, then he started to, as I pressed on, I said, this is important. I try to explain to him why it's important just in terms of storytelling. He says, no, I'm not doing that. That's too waspy. Waspy, that's me. That's too New England. That's me. He used to call, when I would come up with scenes and moments of vulnerability, of softness, or femininity, he would call it a gazebo. So it's one of your gazebo moments. That was his phrase for it. But I could see he was uncomfortable with it for some reason. Now, I don't really at the moment want to figure out what the reason is. I want to figure out how to get around it. And I said, okay, I tell you what, Chaz, I'll make you a deal. Now, this is negotiation. I'll make you a deal. Number one, we put this scene together. We can create the scene. I won't take it's just one scene between you and your father where you tell him what little Johnny said to you and how fantastic that feels to be admired like that. The subtext, by the way, and we'll get to subtext in a moment. Subtext there is, I wish you, my dad, could see me the way little Johnny sees me. That's the subtext of the scene we're creating. I said, we'll put this scene together. Now, and then on Monday night, every Monday nights, we're working at Theater West, which is a theater company we both belong to. And every Monday night, there's a workshop, an acting workshop, where scenes are presented. And almost every Monday night, while we're developing A Bronx Tale, we're putting up pieces of it in front of the membership. There'd be 20, 30 other people there. And so I said, Monday night, I tell you what, we'll put it together. And Monday night, we'll do it in front of the theater and see what kind of reaction we get. And I said, the deal I'm going to make is, I bet you, Chaz, that there's going to be some woman in the audience that is going to react to that in such a positive way because they see a side of you that they have never seen before and how endearing that is. I promise, I bet that's happened. If that happens, it stays in the play. He goes, yeah, fine, that's not going to happen. No way. So we build the scene. We rehearse the scene. We do it on Monday night in front of 10, 20, 30 actors. And I remember Janine Anderson, one of the actresses who we both know very well, her comment is, Chaz, my God, that is beautiful. It was one of the most beautiful scenes. I've seen so many scenes from A Bronx Tale now, but this is the most beautiful because I see you. I see, in fact, in you as the adult, I see the little boy in you, like I've never seen it before. It's charming, it's delightful. Chaz didn't like hearing that because it's exactly what I predicted. It stayed in the show. It became a centerpiece in the show. It's even in the musical. It's 1985, and I've a good friend of mine who sadly just passed away a couple of months ago, named Ron Saucy, who was major theater force in Los Angeles. I first met him when he was working at ABC as an executive liaison between the networks and various sitcoms that I was directing. And then he quit ABC and he started his own small theater. And for many, 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 many years, he ran the Odyssey Theaters in Los Angeles. A lot of you in LA know about Ron and know about the theaters. And Ron had asked me, wanted me to direct something there at the Odyssey and asked me what I would like to do. And I told him about the play Wings, which he knew about. For those of you who don't know about the play Wings, I'll tell you a little bit about it. It's a very, very powerful play written by Arthur Kopit. And it was written based on his experience with his mother who had suffered a stroke. And this play is about a woman who, right at the very opening scene of the play, suffers from a stroke. And the rest of the play, and it's a play without an intermission that goes, 90 minutes, and there's no break. The next 90 minutes is all about what's happening inside her mind. He wrote about that experience from inside. Now, we're also watching the outside of the character. We're seeing people visit her, and we're seeing doctors and all of that. We see a lot of that, but basically, it's a tour de force role for an actress to play. The name Emily Stinson is the character's name. To have to, and it's challenging because you're on stage all the time. You have a lot of dialogue, a lot of script, and a lot of script, the way it's written, makes no sense. You have to make sense out of it and then realize it makes no sense because it's all has to do with how her brain is working and connecting. And she thinks that she's one place, but something else is going on, and she confuses that nurse for being, it's very, very complicated. It's brilliant. And the character, Emily Stinson, in it is, interestingly enough, was, before her stroke, a wing walker. Now, a wing walker is someone who performs at these aerial shows and exhibitions, riding on a biplane with the two sets of wings, standing on the wings and doing acrobatics on the wings and all that. That was what she did. So she was a very accomplished woman. Obviously, now with the stroke, she can't do any of that at all. And one of the things that's in the script, which is really interesting, is the wing walkers' sort of motto that they live by in order to really save themselves, which is don't let go until you're holding on to something else. Now, when you think about it, that makes a lot of sense. You're riding, however many thousands of feet up in the air on a wing, moving at whatever speed with the wind and all that. If you let go with both hands, good chance you could be blown. Anyway, you could plunge to your death. Don't let go until you're holding on to something else. So Ron and the Odyssey Theater producers announced that they're going to do this play. We're doing auditions, and boy, there are women and actresses, amazing actresses coming out of the woodwork who want to do this part. And I'm meeting with them. And there are some who are very well known, who I won't mention, who refused to read for it. They just thought, by their reputation, I should hire them. I would meet with them. I would talk with them. They didn't want to say, no, I don't need to read. You know my work. And as a director, and I'm sure most of you as directors think this way, yeah, I may know your work, but I don't know your work in this part. I need to see you doing this. So we were going through a lot of casting and really weren't finding everything. And then I got a call from Ron that said Barbara Bain had called him. Now, Barbara Bain, a lot of you know who she is. She was really most well known for Mission Impossible. She and her husband, Martin Landau, were two of the lead actors in Mission Impossible. And that launched her career to great heights. She was working a lot before then, but suddenly she was the only woman in it. She's this gorgeous woman. And it was a big hit show, Mission Impossible. At this time, while we're casting Wings, Mission Impossible is in its fourth or fifth season, still going on. But she and her husband had left after the third season. It was very controversial why they left. It had to do with contract negotiations, but basically they left a hit show. They left. And now Barbara needed to do something to sort of redeem herself, I'm guessing, prove to herself that she was still talented, let the audience know that she had not disappeared, whatever. And she decides she wants to, this is her request, ask Mark, me, the director, can I come in and read for him? And I'm going, wow. She wants to read for me. Now, I know a lot about Barbara Bain now. I knew a lot then. Barbara Bain is also a member of the Actors Studio. She even taught acting classes at the Actors Studio. She's a very devoted, rigorous actor. And to ask for permission to come in and read was extraordinary. So, of course, I said, yes, absolutely. She came in. We met with her. She's a lovely woman, charming, delightful, beautiful, and powerful and opinionated, which is fine. And we talked for a while. She says, I want to read to you. I says, is there a certain part I want to read? She says, yes, but I want you to pick any part you want, and I want to read it for you. So she read a part of the script. Great. She read another part that I picked. Great. No problem. We cast her. We're thrilled now because now we have a TV star in our play. This is a little production in a little theater. It's not in a big major theater like the Mark Taper Forum or anything like that. Going to rehearsal is going great. I've got a cast of about 6, 7, 8 people because of all the doctors, nurses, and all the other characters. And we create, which I was very excited about, a set, which was extraordinary. Brad Lohman created it, which could keep changing shapes and sizes. I could explain to you later, not now, how that happened. So that the set, the location, with the lights and with the sound, the world you're watching that she's in keeps shifting and changing. It doesn't stay still. I was trying to replicate what's going on inside her mind. Now, we're about a week before opening. Everything's going great. I mean, she is letter perfect on the script. She had no problem memorizing all that. But about a week before, I'm starting to feel that there's a problem because I'm watching her. And I'm starting to realize that everything that she's doing now that we have the whole play is rehearsed and we're running it with all the technical stuff, she has what I call a locked down performance. She's doing a performance that she has planned, and she can do it exactly like that again and again and again and again. And the more we worked, the more locked down the entire performance became, almost predictable. But it's not that it's predictable. That's not the problem. The problem is it's not feeling authentic. It's not feeling the rawness that I want for this experience this woman is having, which she has no idea how to handle it. It needs to be chaotic, not controlled. And the performance was getting more and more controlled. Now, within that, because she's a very talented actress, there are moments that are stunning, but they feel like they were planned. And I think one of the saddest things is you feel like she knows how good it is, and she will do it, and she knows that you'll be dazzled by it, and she's riding on that. We're coming close to opening. Ron and Frank, the 2 producers at the Odyssey Theater, want to ask me how it's going. I tell them a little bit about some of my concerns, but I'm being very positive. I said it's going well. They want to see a run through. Of course, that was all planned, and they see a run through. And we're maybe 3 or 4 or 5 days from opening, really close. And we do a run through, and everything goes as planned. Technically, it goes as planned. But that performance that I'm telling you about, that planned, controlled performance is there. I can see it. Now, I'm hoping, quite honestly, I'm hoping that Ron and Frank don't see it. I'm hoping that for these 2 guys seeing it for the first time, that's not what gets triggered in their mind. But these 2 guys, Ron and Frank, they're skilled directors. They're skilled in theater. They know better than that. They watch, we talk afterwards. They're horrified. They say, Mark, this is a mess. It's a mess. She's just delivering, a cookie cutter performance. It's so controlled. It doesn't have all the things that I mentioned to you, the rawness, the freshness, the chaos. It's not there. You got to get her to loosen up. You got to get her to be unpredictable. And I say, well, I'll do the best I can. They're right. I go to talk to Barbara. Now I'm talking to her alone. There's nobody else around. And to the best of my ability, I'm trying to express my concerns. I start out with, listen, it's all going great. The performance is great. What you're doing is great. I said, and I even mentioned some moments, this scene or that scene or this, and how impressed I am with how it's working and how you're reacting to this. It's fantastic. So a lot of praise, but genuine praise. I'm not making stuff up. This is genuinely how I felt. Yet there's a problem. So I come to the problem. I said, okay, we just have one problem. I said, you're so good at this. You've done it so well, and you've researched it so well, and you've planned it. That's the negative in there. Planned it so well that I can feel it. I can feel that it's planned. I can feel that it's controlled. What I need you to do, Barbara, is loosen up. Be unpredictable. Be unpredictable. Now, I thought I had expressed it pretty well, and I thought she might go, okay, I can do that. That's not the reaction I got. The reaction I got was, oh, my God, you are the world's worst director. Who? And suddenly she starts lashing out at me for being this horrible, horrible. How can you talk to an actor that way just days before opening? How can you do that day after all this work? And I'm thinking, oh, everything's falling apart. There goes my career. Everything's falling apart. And then she told me a story. She said, listen, you know what this reminds me of? And she told me a story about a very famous actress, a friend of hers who was doing a show on Broadway, and that I think it was Medea or something like that, one of those really challenging performances, very much like Wings, and that the director had said to her friend just before opening night, listen, everything you're doing, everything you've been doing, none of it works. Nothing works. None of that is working. You have to find something else. Do something else. Basically, he was erasing all her work, her whole performance, and saying, come up with something else, which is horrifying, which is horrible. She told me that story. She says, and that's what you're doing to me. She says, that's it. I don't want to talk to you anymore. I said, okay, hold on. I said, first of all, I said to Barbara, what that other director did to your friend was horrendous. It's unforgivable, unforgivable. And I can understand why she was so upset and why it upset you when you heard it. Number two, Barbara, I never told you that what you're doing is not working. In fact, I told you the opposite. I told you how brilliantly it's working. All I asked you to do was loosen up. And I could see her starting to relax a little bit, realizing, yeah, I had complimented her a lot. And I'm just asking her for something that's not terribly unreasonable. But I could see that we were too close to opening and she was too upset to even consider changing. And there certainly isn't enough time for us to go back and start rehearsing again. No, we just need to do run-throughs and previews and then open, and that's it. And then I said to her, you know that thing in the play about the wing walking, Barbara? That motto, don't let go until you're holding on to something else. I said, that's really good advice. Really good advice for a wing walker. Don't let go till you're holding on to something else. Because if you let go and you're not holding on to what makes you feel safe and secure, you could die. Good advice. I said, but Barbara, you're not a wing walker. You're an actress. And if you let go, you won't die. And you just might fly. And she went into total silence. A few days later, it opened, standing ovation, amazing reviews, all tons of awards. I got awards, she got awards, the theater got awards and all that. And at one award ceremony, she praised me more than I thought it was even possible. What a brilliant director I was and working with me. All of a sudden, I was, God's gift to directing. But this is part of the other 50%. How do I move her off of that? Her fear, as I can understand it, and I've seen this in many other actors, is loss of control. From my perspective, what we're looking for in a character is loss of control, not control. A character that's totally controlled and knows what they're doing, that's not that interesting. A character who's losing control, a character doesn't know how to handle a problem or situation, that's interesting. So the actor has to exist, give up control. And she did. And she did. She followed another piece of advice I said, listen, just stay moment to moment and just go with whatever comes up. Just go with it. Be in the moment. Now, being in the moment is also a loss of control. You're in control in the moment, but you may lose control of the direction you're going. It's good to see a lot of you. I will be back in touch with you very, very, very quickly. Feel free to write to me anytime you have any kind of questions. Thank you. I wish you all the best. And thank you for being here on my whole new topic. Okay. Take care.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Mark. It's a pleasure.